Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Splash Education webinar exclusive. My name is Pete Richardson. I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. If this is your first webinar for Splash, or really just any kind of education-based item, welcome. It's great to have you and great to digitally meet you so far. We also have a lot of other people that are familiar faces and familiar names on the call, so welcome back to some of you. The title of today's webinar is going to be Advanced Hub Tactics. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about hub design and management. So if you're in the wrong place, get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. We want you to stay. So, I hope I have your undivided attention for the next hour or so. Feel free to take notes at your leisure. We're going to be running through a lot of different topics here, so sit back and relax. We've got you. The title of this webinar is called Advanced Hub Tactics. Okay, so I'm really excited to get started on this one. It's one of my favorite products within the entire tool of Splash, so I'm really excited to get into it. To kick things off, again, to introduce myself, my name is Pete. I am the Senior Education Manager based out of Los Angeles. I've been with Splash for almost 5 years now, which is pretty crazy, a long time, and I've seen the product evolve in a lot of different ways, which is great. It's become really awesome to use, and one of our newest features, relatively new, is hubs, and I want to make sure that everybody kind of really knows about all the advanced options that come with it. My interests include golf, really anything outdoors, surfing. I like guessing your dog's name. More specifically, I like if your dog's like a normcore name, like Walter, we're going to become close friends. That's kind of my jam. Fun facts about me, I'm made up of 75% teeth and 25% legs. Those proportions are accurate. Another fact is that this mustache that's on my face is new, and I grew it out on purpose because before I didn't have any facial hair. Now I do have facial hair, so it's a more advanced look, maybe. It's going to look just as ridiculous at the end of this hour as it does now, so buckle up. Okay, enough about me. Who are you? Well, hopefully you have some experience in Splash already. Maybe you possibly have some experience with hub design and management. That would be really good. Now you're just looking to learn some advanced topics or advanced ways to enhance that experience for your attendees. We really want to make that event calendar shine. Well, good news, you've come to the right place. But the education doesn't have to stop here. I definitely want to direct you to our Splash Education website, also included in that resource widget to my left, your right. And it has awesome content on there. There are past webinars that we've done. There are online courses that you can enroll in for free. There are Help Center articles that we direct you to. You can introduce yourself to our team. We have bios of all our educators on there. So definitely take advantage of that. It's a great resource to utilize. It's an automatic bookmark moving forward for sure. On that education website, speaking of that, there is a course called Hub Fundamentals. If you have not taken that 20-minute course yet, I recommend pausing this, opening another tab, go to the education website, take that course. That really gives you a beautiful introduction to what hub design and management is. It is led by our design lead at Splash Creative, JC Waldrop. She is delightful. You're going to love her adorable accent. Everything that she teaches is super smart and really thorough. But it's a great introduction to what this webinar is. We're going to get into more advanced stuff, and we're going to just assume that you have some preconceived notion of what hubs are. So get over there, take that course. If you take it, complete it, and pass it, we kick you a Starbucks gift card. It's really a win-win all around, if you ask me. What also I want to alert you to before we dive in, we have 3 public hub themes that exist. So you don't have to rely on custom themes that already exist in your library. You could be a completely new user at Splash in general. And as you create a new event, we have an entire hub category that allows you to access these 3 beautiful dynamic hub themes. Okay, and spoiler alert, we're going to be using that one in the middle with the purple buttons for this training today. So you'll get a nice inside look at it. I also want to make sure that you guys are in Designer Pro. This is not a requirement by any means to actually utilize and execute a successful hub, but there are some advanced things that we're going to go over in terms of spacing and layout that you'll need Designer Pro access. So make sure to toggle it on in your profile, or if you don't really know what to do, reach out to your CSM, your customer success manager over here at Splash. They'll get you set up for success. Okay, intro over. You ready to do this? Need a quick sip of water. Okay, hydration is key when we're designing hubs. let's talk about our agenda. We're going to split this presentation into 3 main parts. Number 1 is going to be hub terminology. I'm going to make sure that we're speaking the same language. Number 2, we're going to get into the actual tool and build out a hub page, throw some events in that hub calendar, make sure everything is oriented the way we want. And then we're going to come back to our slides and we're going to start going back and forth because we're going to have some pre-assigned tasks to accomplish that a lot of the attendees on this call have submitted in advance. So I appreciate that. There are some really common questions that come up all the time when we're teaching hubs, and I want to make sure that everybody's in the know so that there's no advantages out there. I want everybody on the same level, which is going to be really high, hopefully after this hour. All right, so hope you're feeling loose. Hope those mind muscles are ready to go. All right, everybody has maybe like their coffee next to them, their water, maybe it's wine. I don't know what time you're watching this webinar, so it's up to you, but let's get going and let's dive right in to hub terminology. Number 1, a hub. What is a hub? Well, hopefully you know what a hub is, or you shouldn't be on this advanced hub webinar, but if you don't, a hub is just an event calendar element. It exists in an element library and it can be added to any Splash page, as long as you have Designer Pro access to add elements. Okay? If it already exists there, great. You don't even need Designer Pro access. But what's the difference between an event page and a hub page? Well, not much of a difference. Honestly, a hub page is just an event page that has a hub on it. That's pretty much it. There are some things that go on behind the scenes. We kind of reconvert the registration process to be more of like a subscription-based system if it is a hub page. There's some other things in the emails and things like that that we're going to talk about. But pretty simply, a hub page is just an event page with a hub element on it. One thing that we are going to focus on today is the hub card workspace. All right, this is similar to, let's say, the repeatable workspace if you've ever worked in that realm, but it's basically going to allow us to redesign the look and feel of our hub cards. You know, we're going to decide what those events are going to look like when we display them to the masses. And inside the hub card workspace is something called hub card types. So what's cool about Splash is they allow you to design what your upcoming events look like. You could design what your past events look like. You could design what your featured events look like, your private events look like, and other hub card types. We're going to get into a bunch of those, but I just think it's pretty cool. Everything is really going to come standard. Everything's going to look like the default card on the page at first, but you can unlock those other card types, and I'm going to show you how. The hub management modal. This thing is a beast. It is awesome. This is where you're going to manage all the events that exist within your hub. You're going to see all the events listed. You're going to decide how many events you're displaying at once, how they're going to be sorted, if there's advanced filters, if we're going to be iframing this hub into another, our own .com. You're going to add different events. We're going to edit events. A lot of business goes down in the hub management modal. So that's going to become one of our best friends today. And last but not least, one of our last goals, how we're going to conclude this presentation today, is we're going to save this hub page that we design out as a new theme to my library. Okay, so in case in the future that I want to create more hubs and more event calendars down the line, I'm going to have this refined theme to utilize. So the heavy lifting will be done in this hour, and then I'm free to go moving forward. Okay, that's the amazing part about themes. Okay, a theme includes not just adjustments to the look and feel of the page and the layout, but if we change our fonts, our colors, we upload new content like logos and imagery, if we change the registration form or the share card or email templates, we save that all out as a theme. That bundle becomes our playbook moving forward, our template, okay? So another huge feature to know about in Splash. Hopefully you've already learned that in previous courses or previous trainings, but we're gonna refresh our memory there. Okay, one thing to keep in mind with hub design and management, the possibilities are honestly endless. A huge thing to do moving forward, your first step after this concludes, before you even go back to your team, or even when you do go back to your team, get a piece of paper out, set up the whiteboard, and start to sketch out what you want this experience to be for your attendees. Everybody's going to be different. Some people will have a hub that is just specifically for internal events, for internal happy hours. Some will be running a global campaign with events in Europe and Asia and South America and the States, and they need a lot of different ways to kind of orient the user. Sketch all that out first. Splash does a great job by giving you a lot of different options, and I'm here to teach you a lot of those different options. But it's important that if you have new ideas that we haven't even thought of, we want to hear from you, okay? We want to improve the product as you evolve as a Splash user too. So let us know what you're doing, and you're going to see that the magic is really going to come to fruition pretty soon. Okay, with that, let's get into the actual product and let's get rolling. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to hit share. I'm going to give it a second to load in. You're going to see that this media player is automatically going to expand open on your page. Feel free to make it a little larger. Feel free to kind of move it around, whatever makes sense for you. What we're looking at here, I am currently logged into my events dashboard. I may particularly have a hub theme already created in my themes dashboard. That may be the case for some of you. If that is the case, you have a custom hub theme, feel free to use that for the create flow. For now, I'm just going to pretend we don't have one yet. We're going to create our own. So in the top right, I'm going to click the new event button, and I'm going to go through the create flow. Okay. Now this is probably a refresher for anybody that's used Splash before. When you create an event, you're always shown this create flow form. I'm going to call it, let's say, our advanced hub tactics webinar. Perfect. Great. It automatically generates the domain name. We're going to select the event type of hub. Okay, this is one of our new features, so get excited about that. The location and date and time. Now, I know in theory that this is just going to be a hub page where we're just directing people to other event pages. I still find it very useful to put in a real actual location and a real date and time. The reason I say this is because every hub theme is going to display this information a little differently. And you might be a European user that the date, the day comes before the month. And maybe that's not how it's set up on this template. Or maybe you are somebody that needs the venue name included on your hub card, and the hub card only shows the city and state. If things are just marked as location or time TBD, you might not realize that till it's too late, until it's public to the world. So make sure that you kind of throw in some real information here as just a general best practice. It's not really going to matter in the end in terms of the actual data. Okay, next we'll go into choosing our theme. So if you do have a custom theme, you might have a Yours tab that has that hub theme waiting for you. For the sake of everybody else on the call, I'm going to pretend I'm you. I'm going to look through the recommended tab, and I'm going to click into the theme type of hubs. And we're going to see front and center are Splash's brand new hub themes. They're really, really sweet. Okay. And there are different layouts to choose from, whatever kind of floats your fancy. I'm going to choose this one in the middle. It is aptly called minimal. Okay, and I'm going to select it, and we're going to dive in. Now, just as the same as anytime you create an event in Splash, you're taken directly into what we call the event overview page. It marries the world of the designer and the event manager. We're going to see that the touch points are all kind of at the center of the page, and the event management side, the guest list, emails, analytics, and settings live down the left-hand side. All right, but if there is a hub element that already exists on page, you'll see that right away, we've already changed the touchpoint name to hub page instead of event page. So that's the first difference between a hub page and an event page, okay? And as we dive into that hub page, we're going to notice a couple things, right? We are going to see as we scroll down the page that there are no events added to the event calendar by default. There is an empty state, which you will be able to customize the messaging. It says there haven't been any events added to this calendar yet, but please check back soon. We also have the normal look and feel along the right-hand side. We have our layout tab, our trusty theme tab as well. So if we wanted to quickly rebrand this page with new colors and fonts, you have the ability to do that. If you're a designer pro, you can change the color values. Let's say instead of splash purple, we're going to have it be like a lighter blue. Okay. And maybe for the fonts, we'll swap the fonts out just to kind of, review what we already know. Maybe the main font or the subheadline font is going to be Changle 1, and maybe we'll make the actual Roboto medium that might be the main headline to something a little different here. We'll change it to like circular black. All right, cool. So once you're set, once you set up your colors and your fonts, if necessary, if you need to rebrand the page, you can also swap out logos and imagery. We'll talk about all this stuff in a little bit. What I usually start with is I just make sure that I get some events in there so I can actually see what this event calendar, this hub element resembles, okay? So as I click the green Add Event button, it's going to post or pull up the Post New Event modal. And it's going to show me all the events that exist in my database in Splash. So I can select a bunch. So I'll select maybe Pete's Pro Dance Contest, the Bulldog Bazaar, Margin Mania, Big Data, maybe the Coffee Conference. That's pretty good. So I got 5 in there right now. I'm going to publish those. And as you hit publish, what's really cool about Hub technology, it's automatically going to dynamically pull in all the event details from those events. It's going to populate whatever the set is, the main event image, the event's title, the time and date, the location. So everything is kind of pre-positioned and already setting you up for success, right? I didn't have to design these. Splash already does it for me. The other option you have, if we go back into adding event, is you can also add an external event. So these don't have to be events directly from Splash. You can have events pulled in from Facebook, from LinkedIn, from your own .com. Wherever you're hosting your events, you can add those external events. The only difference, as I click this button in the bottom left-hand corner, is you have to manually enter all that information yourself. Splash isn't going to know dynamically where that event information is coming from, right? So I'm just going to quickly populate this with just some placeholder content. The title we'll call The Tools to Be Great Facebook Live. The external URL, for now, we'll just put in facebook.com, but it'll probably have a unique URL. Maybe for the venue name, we'll just put Facebook. Or maybe we'll actually enter a real address. We'll put the venue name as Facebook. Maybe the city is Facebook, just to be safe in case the hub card only shows the city name, right? And we'll hit save. Now, as we can see, it's added to the actual calendar, comes in without an image because we have to manually update that too. So just to show you a little feature here, as you hover over a hub card, we have this little cogwheel that allows us to edit the event's information. This will only edit the event's information that's displayed within the hub element. It doesn't necessarily affect the actual event itself. But in the top right, we can hit upload here for the image. And you can upload a JPEG. It can be an animated GIF if you want to get crazy. It could be a transparent PNG. The only real restriction is that it has to be under 10 megabytes in size and less than 2,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels. You can also browse our stock library. If you've never seen this before, we partner with an amazing company called Unsplash, coincidentally named, but not affiliated with us outside of the integration. But they have brilliant imagery from around the world. They categorize it along the left-hand side. You can also search for the perfect image by putting in an actual search term. And once you find an image you like, you can select it and hit save, and it will now auto-populate in the hub card. All right, so check it out. For the last 10 minutes, we basically already have created our hub page. Pretty awesome, right? Well, all we've done is change the colors, the fonts, and added our events, and we're ready to rock. We could publish this to the world, but that's not what we're here for today, right? We probably already know how to do this, but we want to talk about advanced stuff, right? So let's get into it. Let's go back to our slides. And let's take a look at all the tasks that we have to accomplish, okay? So right now, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to allow this to minimize itself. And if you have it full screen right now, make sure that you kind of, contract the window a little bit so you can see the slides again. So the slide that you should be seeing on screen is called Our Tasks. So like I mentioned before, we had a lot of tasks submitted in advance to kind of populate the content of this webinar. So let's get into seeing what people actually want to learn. Okay, task number 1. This user said, I have a ton of different events going on, but I don't want to overwhelm the attendee. Is there a way to limit the number of events I'm showing in my hub? So this is very common. A lot of people have a lot of different events that they want to show on one hub page, right? Maybe it's hundreds of events. And scrolling through that list could be really tedious and really overwhelming. And maybe you only want to show like the 10 most relevant events, depending on whatever you want the relevancy to be. Maybe it's the most that are upcoming the soonest or the closest to the person. We're going to get into that. So how do I limit the number of events I'm showing in my hub? Okay, memorize that task, digest it. Let's get back into the screen share here. So I'm jumping back over to my demo page. And what I'm going to do as this screen share reactivates, I'll allow it to load in for a second here. I'm going to come down here to my event calendar. Now, you're going to notice in Splash, we always give you multiple ways to access information and different tools. In this case, if I click directly on the hub element on page, you can see along the right-hand side, my event hub allows me to edit the card layout and manage events. Those are going to be 2 main buttons. Those same buttons actually exist on page. If I hover over the hub element, I have this manage button and the edit card. And apologies if it's a little faint on the webinar side, but do know that those are what those buttons say. Okay. I like to rely on these buttons along the right because I'm going to do more things in this event hub dropdown anyways. So I like to kind of just stay centralized in one place in the layout tab. Now let's click into manage events. Let me introduce you to this hub management modal. for a second here. Let me give you the lay of the land. What you're seeing here are all the events that we've added to our hub, here listed in list form, okay? We have an input field to limit the number of events we're showing. That's going to be task number 1. We're going to tackle that in just a second. We then have this sorting by options of how your events are actually sorted, what order they come in. And then we have advanced filters along the left-hand side and some other features that we're going to talk about. Let's focus on task number 1, one thing at a time, right? Well, we have currently 6 different events currently listed in this hub, all right? But maybe that's too many. Maybe we only want to limit it to, let's say, 4 events. So I enter the numerical value, I hit enter, and we're going to see that 2 of the events gray out. Now, you immediately might have the question, how does Splash determine which events are going to be grayed out? Am I able to manualize that? Okay, good question. So this is the events that get grayed out are dictated by 2 things. 1, how the events are sorted. That's number 1, it's the main one. And then 2, if you have any advanced filters, which we're going to get into in a little bit, okay? Let's talk about the sorting by options. By clicking to this drop down, by default, Splash is going to filter your events, or excuse me, order your events by upcoming first. Okay, so whatever event is most upcoming in the nearest future, that's going to be first in line. And then you have closest first. This is a pretty cool feature. So let's say that you are a user that has events in Los Angeles and New York. Okay. I mentioned at the top of this webinar that I am based in Los Angeles. Shout out to my fellow Californians. If I choose closest first, that means that I'm going to see events that are closest to me. If I had to guess, this Margin Mania, this event is based in Los Angeles, so that's why I see that first. But if you were to view this hub and you are based in New York or Europe, you would see New York events first because that is closer to you than Los Angeles. I know that's common sense, but it's important to be really specific of how this works, okay? The third option you have is popular. So this is based on how many people have actually already registered for that event. Okay, so maybe like your most popular event, that gets sorted to the front of the line. Alphabetical is self-explanatory. That's based on the alphabetical of your event's title, okay? And then you have date created. So if you've maybe are someone that creates events every day or every week, and you want your most recently created event to filter to the top of the list automatically, that's where the date created sort by option comes into play. Okay, for now, we're gonna set it back to upcoming first. We're only showing our 4 events that are most upcoming. You see the one that is in the past and the one that hasn't been determined when that event's gonna be. Those are grayed out. We're gonna hit save, and you can see that now we only see 4 on page. Now, another question might be, okay, that's great, but what if I only have like 6 events like we do in ours? It's okay to have like a show more button or something like that that can reveal the rest of the events, right? Awesome. So we have available in our element library, as I hover on page here, I'm going to click this light blue circle plus sign to launch our element library. Inside the hubs category, the center category here on page, I have the option to add a hub search bar, a hub navigation, and even a show more button. We're going to get into hub search and navigation in the next task, I'm sure, but let's add the show more button. I want to explain how this works. So this show more button, it's a little faint on the piece, so I'm just going to change the background color of it to light blue so we can see it, and the font to black so it really stands out, okay? And I'll even consider maybe lowering or moving the show more button below the actual hub itself and maybe add additional margin so it pushes away from the actual hub element. Cool. So how does the show more button work? Well, I'm glad you asked. And even if you did, I'm going to tell you anyways. So the show more button, how this works is this button is only going to populate if it's necessary. Okay. What that means is if we have elected to show 100 events in this hub and we only have 6, this show more button would vanish by default. Okay. If somebody was to click this button, let's just test it. You see that all the events are now shown and the button's text changes to show fewer. So if you wanted to customize this text, feel free to do that. You'll see along the right-hand side as you click into the show more button element, we have the ability to style the different states. So the show more functionality or the show fewer. So if we wanted to style show more to say, see all events, and then if we wanted to style the second state to show less events, we can customize it that way. Cool. So to prove my point, let's just say that we went back into our hub management modal. And we said, let's limit the number of events to 10, and we hit enter. We only have 6 events. So we hit save, and we jump out. Now we don't see that show more button because it's not necessary to see it. Okay, that works. So you can limit the number of events you're showing to certain users. You can give them the option to manually decide if they want to see more events or not. That's via the show more button element inside the hub category. So far, so good? Okay, let's stop sharing for a second. So we're going back to our slides just to give you a heads up. Slide number 2, or excuse me, task number 2. I dig the look and feel of my hub, but I wish there was a way for attendees to find the event they are interested in more efficiently. Any tips here? Okay, good question. So a lot of you will have a lot of different event types, and maybe they're based in different locations. Maybe they're different events themselves, and you want your attendees to quickly find the one that is relevant to them. You could do your best kind of sorting the hub for them and filtering it the way that you want, but every attendee is just going to be like, I need to get in here and find the exact event that's relevant to me. Let me show you how. So I'm going to go back into the screen share. I'm going to go back into my demo page, but allow the screen share to load back in. And we're going to get into the other hub elements that you can add to the page. Now, in this particular hub theme, we're lucky. It comes pre-populated with a hub navigation element. For now, I'm just going to delete it altogether. We're just going to pretend that it didn't exist. And I'm going to show you where to access that type of element. So if I hover my mouse over the event calendar element and I click the blue element adder, I'm going to go into the hubs category again. And I'm going to add the 2 other options. We already know what the show more button does. We're going to add the hub search and the navigation. First things first, we'll add the hub search to the page. It's going to come in with a pre-designed, really plain and simple white input field with a search button on the right-hand side. And we're also going to add, going back into the hubs category, the hub navigation element. Okay, cool. So I recommend keeping these navigation items, pretty close to the hub element itself. These could live above the main headline. It could live at the top of the page if you wanted. I just feel as a user experience pro tip, keep it relevant to the actual hub. Keep it near and dear. Okay. So let's talk about the differences between the hub search and the navigation. The hub search is pretty easy to understand. This is going to search for keywords within your hub element. So keywords include the event title, the location, the date and time, okay, and any tags that you add. And we're going to talk about tags in a little bit. But so if I just search this hub for, let's just say, Bulldog, it would probably only populate this Bulldog Bazaar because it's going to search for the keyword and see that Bulldog is included in the event title, okay? How the navigation element works is a little differently. Okay. Now, by default, Splash populates 4 different navigation items: upcoming, closest, popular, and featured. Those options are automatically going to work with the hub element that exists on page. Okay. If a user was to click on featured, it would only show events that you've tagged as featured, which we'll go into in a little bit. If they choose upcoming, they'll only see events upcoming, so on and so forth. But let's talk about customizing this navigation element. As I click into edit, the little link icon in the top left, let's customize this to our liking, like I said. The first option says upcoming. Maybe let's call this all events. Just so I recommend having an all events option, or just show all, so people can quickly kind of go back to seeing all the events at once. We're okay with the middle column being search hub. I don't think you're ever going to need to touch that. The third column, though, is what you will need. Now, we have options of sort by upcoming, sort by distance, RCP count, show featured, so kind of those sorting options. We also have some keywords, some tags, which we'll get into in a second. Right now, we'll keep it as sort by upcoming. More often than not, that's going to be all the events that you're including. Okay. If there are past events or time TBD, we'll get into that in a second, but all events sort by upcoming is usually your best bet. The second one, maybe I want to have an option for people to quickly just find events that are based in New York. So I'll search for keywords, and I'll enter the search term of New York. So that's going to search for if an event title has New York in it or the location has New York in it. That's what's going to work here. The third one, maybe I'll get really specific to show you another advanced option of tags. So maybe I'll say, all right, only show me events that are tagged as design. Okay. And to implement that tag, I'm going to search for search tags in the third column, and I'm going to manually enter that tag. Now, tags are really, really specific. So you have to be careful and make sure that you're using proper title casing. So if you're going to tag this event as design, make sure that the tag has a capital D too. Okay? I'm going to show you how to do this. The fourth option featured, we don't need that right now. I'm just going to delete that and we're going to hit save. So we have our 3 different navigation items. Okay. So to prove my point, I want to make sure that we have at least one event tagged as design. I'm going to guess that Pete's Pro Dance Contest is already tagged as design, so I don't want to confuse you if that's the case. I'm going to click into the event details, the little cogwheel at the top left of the hub card. I'm going to come down here. I see, sure enough, it's already tagged as design. That works great. And maybe I'll tag another one as design too. Maybe I'll come down here, and the big data one is going to be based on design. So I will come down here, and I will manually enter the tag by typing it in, hitting enter to implement the tag, and hitting save. Great. All right, so let's check out this page. I'm going to save changes, and we're going to view this page as a guest. And as I scroll down here, let's try this navigation on for size. Well, the search bar, as I said, if I just search for Bulldog and I hit enter, you can see that the only event that has Bulldog as a keyword shows front and center. If I go back to all events, or actually I clear out this search term and I hit enter, and I click on all events, now I can see all the different events that were already included in my hub. If I select the New York option, this is only showing me events that are based in New York. You can see that it's being tied to that location. Pretty cool, right? And last but not least, if I go back to all events and I choose design, now I see the only 2 events that I've manually tagged as design. So I'm going to take a breath for a second here. I want you to digest what just happened. Think about your hub and how you want to customize your experience. Maybe you're going to be showing a lot of different events, and you're going to want your navigation to allow people to sort by location. Maybe it's by event type if you're like a Lululemon and you want to have a yoga as an option and stretching and running or in-store as viable options. That could be the way that you want to set up your navigation. Maybe you just want to have 2 different options, all events and featured events. Maybe you want past events as an option. Think about this moving forward, because you can really customize this in a lot of different unique ways. We've seen a lot of different people get really creative with it. I just want to make sure that you know that it's customizable. Okay, so let's jump back into our event page. So we now know about how to really customize that experience for the attendee to allow them to search for that exact event that they need. All right, let's pause this screen share. Let's jump into task number 3. I'm going to take a quick sip of water while this loads. Okay, task number 3. I want to direct people to my upcoming events, but I also want them to still be able to access past events. Do these have to be in the same block, or can we separate these into different sections somehow? All right, that's a good question. All right, so let's talk about this. And maybe we'll even talk about task number 4 too. Let me take a look at this. And we might adjust on the fly. We usually don't do this, but I'm feeling a little risky. All right, task number 4 also says, is there a way to have my featured events stand out inside my hub element? So task 3, we want to see upcoming events and past events, potentially separately of each other. And we also want to see that if featured events can really stand out. That's task number 4. Okay, buckle up. See if we can knock 2 out in one screen share. Going back into the screen share, going into my application window. All right, so we're going to allow this to load in. Okay, what's our goal? Say it out loud. Just kidding, I can't hear you. The goal is, first off, we're going to divide our upcoming events and our past events. So we're going to decide how to actually show those, right? So where are we going to go first? Well, we're going to click into the hub element. I'm going to go along the right-hand side, and I'm going to go into Manage Events, okay? Now, the first thing that I want to focus on are advanced filters, okay? The filters along the left-hand side. Then we're going to get into kind of our hub card types and things like that. All right, advanced filters along the left-hand side. If I add a filter for a date, that's the first option, you're going to see that by default, Splash is displaying all 4 types based on your date. We're showing upcoming events, we're showing ongoing events, we're showing events that are marked as TBD, and we're showing past events, okay? Now, this particular case, if I just wanted to not show past events and I only want to show upcoming, and I unselect that checkbox, you see that the coffee conference that was based in November 2019, well in the past by now, is now being not shown, right? And I can hit save changes so that I make sure that anytime an event concludes or is in the past, I'm no longer showing in my active upcoming hub, okay? Now, if I go back into the management modal, I can also do the reverse. I can say, actually, I only want to show past events in this hub. And you can see that my 5 active events or TBD events are grayed out, and I only am showing the coffee conference, and now that displays on screen. Okay. But we can further enhance this experience for the attendee. Okay, if I go back into the management, right? Let's say, I'm going to clear out that filter, and I'm going to say, all right, maybe we want our past events to look different. Okay. Well, along the right-hand side, I'm going to introduce you now to the HubCard workspace by hitting the Edit Cards Layout button. As this launches, you're going to see that we have different HubCard types, all right? And we can also redesign the layout of our HubCard in here. Right now, our featured, our past, our private events are all going to be looking identical to the default event card, right? Also the upcoming event card, right? But maybe we want our past event, if we unlock it for editing, maybe we want that card's, maybe the content container becomes black. Maybe the individual elements inside this actual hub card are going to be blue or white so that they stand out and are actually legible on that black background. Okay, one by one here I go. And as I make this change, we are going to see when I click back out that the only card that now stands out is our coffee conference, because that's in the past, right? Now, this looks pretty cool, all right? We've only changed one thing, but the designers on the call might already been like, hey, Pete, that looks a little out of line, right? It doesn't really seem to be lining up with the other events. What's going on there? Well, how Splash's hub technology works is we click back into the element. This little drop-down menu allows you to also access height matching options, which is really neat. Okay, and height matching is really cool, especially if you have events that have a lot longer of a title. You can see Pete's Pro Dance Contest expands to be 2 lines so that it automatically bakes in space for the Bulldog Bazaar and the Margin Mania so that the dates and the buttons or the locations and the buttons still line up with each other. That's because height matching has been enabled. Once you start to customize the different hub card types, height matching no longer works from hub card type to hub card type because it's become its own entity. It's kind of doing its own thing, right? So even if we experiment with height matching, we change it to cards the same height or elements the same height or disable it altogether, now things are really out of whack. It's not really going to ever be perfect. So as a best practice and as an advanced hub user, I'm going to teach you how to do this. We're going to separate these 2 different event types, upcoming events and past events, into different hub blocks. All right, so buckle up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click into the hub block, and you can clone blocks in Splash. Hopefully you already know how to do that. In the bottom right, we're going to hit clone. And we're going to rename these 2 blocks so that we're not confused. The top block, we're going to call upcoming events. And we're even going to rename the hub element inside the actual block. This is going to be really beneficial for your organization moving forward. And then for the second hub block, we're going to call it Past Events Hub Block. And we'll rename the element Past Events. Okay. What I would also recommend, outside of just organizing in the Layout tab, is also making it easier for your user to understand. So maybe changing the headline on page is useful too. We'll call it upcoming events and past events. Okay. Most of the heavy lifting is done. Now we have to go back into our filters and make sure we're displaying the right events. So if we click back into the hub element up top, the upcoming events hub, and we go back into manage our events, let's add a filter for date. And let's say, all right, only show me upcoming events. So we'll uncheck everything except for upcoming, right? Maybe we'll keep ongoing and TBD in there if we want. But for now, we'll just say upcoming and ongoing. We'll hit save. Okay. The other hub will come down here and we'll say, all right, for this hub, only show me. Let me go back into my manage events. We're going to say, all right, this one, only show me past. Okay, and we'll hit save. We'll have this reload. And now we have different sections for upcoming events and past events. As further emphasis to your user experience, sometimes I would also recommend making it really clear that the past events section is a little different. Maybe you change the background color to blue or black to really make it stand out. I'll leave that up to you guys to decide how you want to do that. But that sometimes just helps with user experience. Keep in mind, there is one event missing. Remember that external event we added, the Facebook Live? That's TBD. So just keep that in mind, that you might be, with all these advanced filters, you might be starting to eliminate events from actually showing on your hub at all. And that's a no-no. So I might go back into the management center and I might say, all right, include the TBD option for the Facebook Live event. We'll hit save. And now we allow that 5th event to pop in as well. All right, so that's task number 4. Dividing your upcoming events from your past events is highly recommended. You can definitely keep all the events in one hub, but sometimes you're going to be confusing the user if you're showing past events in the same section as your upcoming events. People might get excited for an event they've already missed out on. Okay. The 4th task, if you remember, was, is there a way to have my featured events stand out inside my hub element? Okay. Now, featured events are really awesome. There's a lot of different companies out there that utilize Splash's hub technology to really emphasize their featured events. The New York Times does it really well, where they have their main featured event kind of take up the full width of their New York Times/events page, and then they have the rest of their upcoming events listed below. To show you some other options, if I click into, we're still in the screen share here, let's just take a look at Lattice. They do a really cool job in their hub page, just to show you a cool example in live time. They have their featured event up top with kind of a main image along the right-hand side, the main information on the left, and then they have their upcoming events kind of listed in kind of like a list view. So none of this is custom code. This was all just them kind of utilizing the hub technology, redesigning the layout for their hub cards, and splitting their hubs into different sections. So they have one hub element up top that's filtered to only show featured, and one below that's only upcoming. Pretty neat, right? So let me show you how to do that. Let's click back over to our demo page, and let's include a 3rd block, all right? So I'm going to go into my upcoming events hub block. I'm going to clone it, and I'm going to call that top block featured events. And for this featured events, maybe we don't need a navigation, because it's just going to be probably one event at one time. So we'll hide the navigation elements for now. We'll rename the headline title featured events. Get rid of upcoming. And we'll go into the management side of things. Okay. So we'll click into the Event Hub Management button. And we'll say, okay, not only do I want to show upcoming, ongoing, and TBD events, but I also want to show only featured events. So our second option in the add filter is featured, okay? And if I click into featured and I say, all right, show me only featured events, you're going to see along the right-hand side, every event's grayed out. Why is that? Well, I've technically not tagged any of these events as featured yet. So how do I do that? So let's pick an event that we find as our favorite event, maybe the Bulldog Bazaar, right? Who doesn't want to go to the Bulldog Bazaar? So inside the Hub Management modal, you can also edit the event here, same way that you can click on that cogwheel on page. And if I click Edit, you're going to see along the right-hand side, we have this checkbox for featured event. So as I click that, whoops, not right-click, if I left-click it, we choose featured event, we hit Save. Now that event is deemed featured, okay? We're going to see that the rest get grayed out as we hit Save here. You're going to see our featured event is our Bulldog Bazaar. Scroll a little down, we have our upcoming events. Scroll a little further, we have our past events. So you might want to choose to have your featured event card look different. It can also have the look and feel of the upcoming events. It could just be in the featured events hub. That is up to you to stay organized and decide how you want to play that. I would usually recommend just redesigning what the featured hub card looks like in advance. So how to do that, I'm going to click into Edit Card Layout. We're going to get a little tricky here. I'm going to make, let's just say I want the event image to take up, let's say 50% of the hub card. Let's say I want the content container to take up 50% of the hub card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want the whole hub card to actually be a width of 100%. So I want it to be edge to edge. And I don't want any additional margin because it's just going to be one particular event. Maybe I'll make the title a lot bigger. Maybe I'll set it to like 3 rems in size. Maybe I'll start to kill the padding on all edges. This is just a review of things you learn in our Intro to Designer Pro courses at splashtop.com/education. Had to plug it. But as I click out now, and this might look pretty crazy, so buckle up for a second, I'm going to see that my featured event is now our Bulldog Bazaar, nice big front and center. We're really allowing to zoom into that Bulldog picture along the left. As a designer, I would recommend, probably finessing this a little more. Maybe the actual event card image or the hub card image could be a little smaller. That's just a recommendation. So maybe I'll set it to like 25% or a little less padding. But if I click back out, we're going to see that it allows that image to kind of expand down a little bit. And now we have a nice big featured events card. Looks completely different than our upcoming events or our default event card. And then we have our past event card with the black background. Pretty cool, right? The other option you could do is just kind of add like a featured tag or a different kind of hub card element to make it stand out within your upcoming events. I've seen people do that really well. That's another option. Everybody has their own kind of way to go about it. But before we go back to our slides for our 5th and final task, I also wanted to point out something that I noticed that we didn't talk about yet. If I go back into managing our events, I want to talk about the other advanced filters you have here. So we can also add a filter based on distance. So this is very similar to the sort by option of closest, where if I say by distance, I could say, all right, I only want to see events that are not only upcoming and ongoing and featured, but maybe I want to have them have a maximum distance of 100 miles away from me, and I hit enter. Well, that Bulldog Bazaar is based in New York. So I'm in Los Angeles. You can see that it gets grayed out. But maybe if you were viewing this hub on your end in New York, you would see that, even with all these 3 advanced filters kind of applied. So that's something you might want to consider. Maybe you are a client that only exists in Chicago, and you have events in North Chicago and South Chicago and Wrigley and Lincoln Park and all these different locations within Chicago, and you want the user to be able to be really specific of which events they're seeing. This advanced filter is a great option to utilize. I haven't seen it used often, to be completely honest, but when it has worked, it's been really awesome for the user experience for the attendee. The other filter options you have are based on page type. So this is really advanced. This is for, let's say that I have a global hub, and within my global hub, I have a New York hub, a Los Angeles hub, and a Chicago hub. Okay, so you could display only event pages in your hubs, which is the default option, or you could display hub pages as well. So I could link people out to my New York hub and my Los Angeles hub from this main hub. Okay, hubs within hubs. I know we're kind of getting into the Inception world here, but again, think back to your whiteboard. Think about exactly how you want this experience to work. Splashes probably has an answer for you already pre-built into the technology that won't require any custom code or implementation on our part, just by using these advanced filters along the left. The other option you have, event type, this one you probably won't use. Just going to be completely transparent with you right off the bat. This is based on those event type options when you went through the create flow. Remember how we could choose in Splash, like if it's a happy hour or conference or hub or something like that. Maybe your event types are curated, custom curated for your own organization. That's awesome. So you could have event types like I only want to show yoga events in here or happy hour events or something like that. If you enter happy hour here and you hit enter, none of these events came in as happy hour events, so I wouldn't see that. But maybe they came in as, I don't know, maybe they're just conference events or something like that. Right now, I can't really guess the event type. It has to be manual entry, so it makes it a little convoluted and confusing. Might not use this filter. The last filter you will potentially use, tags. So we talked a little bit about in that navigation element, how you could allow the user to find an event based on a tag that you manually set up in the navigation, right? It was a design tag, right? So maybe for this one, we only want to see events that are marked as design, okay? We can see that all of them gray out. Why are they all grayed out? I thought we tagged 2 of them as design. Well, remember, we have a couple other layers of filtering going on here. If we kill that featured filter, now we have Pete's Pro Dance Contest and the big data. We hit save. Now we already have this section pre-designed to only show these 2. So it's pretty cool. You can design this the way that you want, set it up the way that you want using those advanced filters, and really customize that experience to make sure that those featured events or the other advanced filtering options stand out for your page. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's get back to our last task. We have just about 10 minutes left. We're doing great on time to wrap this up. So let's talk about task number 5. Some of my attendees have been complaining about how long it takes to scroll through all the different events. What should I do here? Is it possible to hide certain elements or entire sections on just mobile, but still keep it on desktop? Well, the good news is, yes, you can do that. You've learned in, hopefully, Designer Pro courses, either online or through live trainings, that you can make independent changes across mobile and tablet that will only affect those workspaces and not be present on desktop. So let me show you how to do that. Just bringing up the screen share one more time. Go into the application window. Go back into our demo page. As this loads in. All right. So as we jump back into our page, let's take a look at this. So as I said, let's get back into this filter. I'm going to make sure these filters are correct. And just throw this back in to filtered to be featured. Okay, great. So if we go over to mobile, we're going to see that there might be things that we want to adjust the layout to be, which we can on just mobile. So right away, if I went into edit the card layout here and I said, all right, I actually want my event image to take up 100% of space and the content container to also take up 100% of space. Huge pro tip here, when you're designing for mobile, if something doesn't look right, if like the text is really squeezed in, just start to set the width of things to be 100%. And it's usually going to allow us to naturally stack on top of each other on mobile and make it look a lot better. Okay, so right away, we've already resolved that featured event card. But for the rest, maybe I don't want people to keep scrolling and seeing all the individual events. Maybe for this particular case, I don't even need them to see past events on mobile if that's how they're using this page. So maybe I'll click into the entire block and I'll just hide just past events and we'll hit save. And now if we make that change, right, we've made a stylistic change to the featured events card and we've completely hidden the past events. If I go back over to desktop, I'm going to see that those changes haven't taken place here, which is amazing. That tells me as a designer, awesome. I can individually curate the experience for my attendees from device to device if I need to. Hopefully Splash's hub themes have already been pre-set up to look beautiful on all devices. Spoiler alert, they have. But you can also make independent customizations as you deem fit. Cool. So that's all our tasks, but we have a couple more minutes, and I want to make sure you know about a couple other key features. Okay, so we're going to stay here in the screen share. We're not going to leave. And what we're going to do is I also want to talk about kind of the registration experience. I mentioned that when you convert an event page to a hub page, just by having a hub element on it, that it's no longer collecting RSVPs. It's now collecting subscriptions, all right? And with those subscriptions is a learning opportunity or a data capturing opportunity, more precisely for you, the Splash host, okay? So let's click out here and let's get into the registration form touchpoint for a second. I'm clicking out here and I'm going to click into that registration form touchpoint as mentioned. And as I click into it, let's think about this. So if somebody's subscribing to my hub, I want them to get updates about like new events and things like that, but I also want to learn what events are working, right? So if somebody's subscribing to this, they're probably attending more than one of my events. So let's add a custom question here along the right-hand side. And the registration form touchpoint, this is something that you could learn in an online course. It takes about 10 minutes through splashthat.com/education. Recommend checking it out. It's amazing. But if I get into here and I go into, let's say, creating a new question, let's maybe add a drop-down question. We'll add to form. And we'll say that this question is required. The label will be, what events interest you the most? And we will include drop-down or placeholder text that says select an event type. And the drop-down options, we will say happy hours. We can hit enter to add a new choice. Conferences, yoga, and maybe that's good. Okay, so we have our 3 options. We see that question populates here within the registration touchpoint immediately. You don't have to select one by default. You can allow the user to do that, and we'll hit save. And so what I'm doing here is I'm thinking about strategically, what is some other data that I could capture that's related to my most important attendees? And by most important, I just mean the ones that actively interact with your brand the most, that come to the most events, right? So maybe I'm finding that no one is actually interested in conference events. And maybe that's something I should stop doing. Maybe I should invest more in the happy hours or the yoga events or the other event types that I've been throwing, because I know that those aren't performing if nobody's actually interested in them. So something else to consider. It's not necessarily an advanced tactic related to web or hub design, but it's more kind of the management side of things. Another thing that I want to point out that's related to that, related to your frequent subscribers, inside the settings tab along the left-hand side, we have an option here in additional options that says auto subscribe anyone who subscribes to an event within a hub. Okay. What this means in a little different way to phrase it, if somebody was to discover that Bulldog Bazaar on their own, maybe one of their friends just kicked them the link and they went to the Bulldog Bazaar, they signed up for it, you have the ability as a Splash host to auto-subscribe them to all of your events just because they've registered for an event that's included in your hub. How cool is that? Now, some people might take offense to this. Maybe they're like, I didn't sign up to be subscribed to this. That's okay. If that's something that you want to avoid, that is up to you. But we give you this option because it's pretty cool. You can allow your attendees to kind of start to fill in your subscriber list automatically just by registering to events that you're including in your hub. So, and think about the positive side of this. Maybe that person that went to the Bulldog Bazaar didn't know that Pete's Pro Dance Contest is coming up. Probably should have checked that out. They might not even know that you throw more than one event a year. So auto-subscribing them to events gets more people in the know of the type of events you're throwing and gets them in the door. Okay, and those are going to be your most valuable customers anyways. All right. The other thing to point out is if I click back out, I'm just going to hit save here. In the confirmations, you also might want to consider customizing the messaging for not only your on-page confirmation, but through email. I won't dive too deep into this because we only have a couple minutes left, but keep in mind that the 3 public-facing hub themes that Splash recommends using also come pre-populated with some headline text and some also additional messaging. Great, you're now in the know. We'll keep you updated with news and updates about our upcoming events. You can design the look and feel of that confirmation touchpoint to look however you want. It's already going to come pre-designed, but if I click on that design button, you'll see that the headline is nice and big and the confirmation message element is dynamically automatically going to get pulled in. If you want to have a little more fun, I think it's really nice when people are subscribing to your event to celebrate it a little bit. So sometimes I'll add, let's just say an image to my confirmation on page. And maybe that image is something that is obviously brand approved, but sometimes I'll even go into Giphy and I'll just find something that's really fun. So maybe I'll just add, maybe this kid dancing on the chair. I love this GIF. So when somebody actually subscribes to our events, they're hit with a nice little animated surprise. It's like, congratulations, you're now one of our subscribers. Apologies if this GIF isn't, coming through in the webinar as cleanly as it actually is playing. But, just think about that moving forward. It could be a little illustration or your company logo or something like that as well. Okay. The last thing we're going to do, I talked about at the top of the call, right? We worked really hard on this hub page, right? All we did was actually add, events to this hub that already came pre-designed in Splash's public theme library, but we've added some advanced filters. We've created different hub blocks. We've made our featured events stand out. We've made sure that there's custom navigation so that the user experience is on point for our attendees. And I don't want to have to do that every time I create a hub page in the future, right? I can use Splash's public themes, but I don't want to do all that work again, right? That was a lot of work for the last hour. So what we want to do, if we click into the hub page touchpoint, we're going to save this out as a theme in our library. And if I click into the theme tab, right, I am going to try to screenshot the page as much as possible. But instead of hitting change theme, I'm going to click into the edit theme button options. And I'm going to call this the advanced hub tactics webinar. The next time I create a hub page, maybe it is for just my New York events, I can use this theme and it comes pre-built custom blocks, there's custom filters, that custom confirmation message, my new brand colors, my new brand fonts, all that jazz, right? So I'm going to swap this image out with the screenshot that I captured. It's very important, a good best practice moving forward. Try to really consider what the image you're using to represent your theme is going to be. You can pre-design it in Photoshop and upload it as a JPEG, whatever you want here. It doesn't have to be a screenshot of your event page. And also make sure the title is really specific too. And then when you hit Save Theme, you get a nice little message. Nice work. This has been saved to your custom themes. You get psyched. We're stoked. We're going to go all the way out to our home page. Wrapping up in the last 2 minutes here. If I click into my themes dashboard along the left-hand side, we're going to see waiting front and center is our Advanced Hub Tactics webinar theme. And if this is their first time saving a theme, congratulations, this is actually really dope. Once you start saving your own themes, you have access to theme options, which allows you to make edits to the theme at any time. You can create new events off of it, which is something that I might plan to do in the future, right? You can share the theme with other teammates if they don't have access to it. You can preview it if you forget what it looks like, or you can unset it as a theme altogether. One last thing to note, let's just say in the future, we rebrand and we now have red as a main color instead of blue. Well, we might want to make sure that we edit this theme as well, right? So if I click into Edit Theme, one thing that I want to point out, you guys are already pros. You know to click into the hub page touch point, you know to click into the theme tab, and you know how to make edits to your colors. That's all just standard. Pete, why are we even covering this? Well, when you are changing a theme and you want to update that template so that future events created off of that template have this new color baked in as well, not only do you need to save the event page or the hub page touch point in the top right, but you need to go into the theme tab and remember to update the theme, okay? It's the same way to actually create a new theme or save a new theme. You want to make sure to update the theme, okay? So that's just a huge best practice, a huge tip to remember that just by hitting Save Page is only saving this particular entity. If you wanted to save changes to the entire template, you need to update the theme, okay? So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to come back over. We're going to wrap things up. So if you stuck with us for that entire hour, thank you so much. We have a blast creating these webinars. We have a blast teaching this tool. I personally love the Hub element. I think it is quite advanced. I appreciate you joining with us. Hopefully you submitted some questions in advance. Feel free to use that QA widget to ask any remaining questions. But on behalf of the entire education team, on behalf of all of Splash, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Happy designing. We'll see you next time.